Mr. Jack Sobel, we are finally back for another edition of Hey Horka. I feel like it's been a month. I think it has been a month. I meant to check the last date that it was you and me on here for this show, Blue and Gold YouTube channel. Like this video, please. If you're watching live, subscribe to this channel. We are here every Wednesday when we can be. But on that note, Jack covered a men's basketball game Wednesday 2 weeks ago, I think it was. I think it was me covering a women's basketball game last Wednesday. You might have even had two Wednesday games, or maybe I did. I don't know. Long story short, we've been busy on Wednesdays, but we finally have one off, so to speak. But we're online on this channel. So I guess we'll start there. Catch up with you, man. How's it been? And we only got two more regular season Notre Dame football games to talk about. That is pretty wild.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm happy to be back. Hoops has been good. I think, women's team definitely hasn't lost. Men's team has not lost. The men's team looks good through 4 games. They're at a point where Micah Shrewsbury can come in after a 17-point win that gets him to 4-0 and be kind of ticked off. And rightfully so. I mean, they rebounded pretty terribly against North Dakota, but they won by 17, and it's a coaching point that you'd rather fix after a win than after a loss. Marcus Burton dropped 29 last night. He's obviously a star. Braden Shrewsbury had an off game, but he's having a good year. Tay Davis is having a good year. They appear to be a very deep team. They've gotten a lot of end of bench contributions or end of rotation contributions in their last couple wins. So you can give your spiel about the women's team, but I think it's going to be a fun basketball season in South Bend.
One more point on the men's team. I guess they finally got hit by an injury bug, right? Like that.
Correct.
Infestated its way to the men's side.
Yeah. Sir Muhammad, the one freshman who is set to make a big contribution this year, he is out until indefinitely. He's out indefinitely with lower body surgery was the official word, but we were told that he aggravated his knee that was bothering him in the summer. From what my understanding is that they don't know exactly how his rehab's going to go, but if it goes well, they hope to maybe have him back for the second half of the season. But I don't think they know at this point, so indefinitely is the official word.
Too many lower body injuries with the women's team to count, man. It's ridiculous. You have Maddie Westbell, who's obviously out until, I would guess, mid-January. She said early conference. Technically, that starts December 8th with a game against Syracuse, and then they get into the full conference swing after Christmas. I think it's like the 28th, 29th, and from then on, it's all ACC. But yeah, I wouldn't expect her back till January. Liza Carlin, who knows? She got hurt in the exhibition game. She's been in a boot ever since. Good spirits. She's like hopping around on the bench. She's active in pregame warmups, like rebounding for these girls and kind of running around with that boot on, obviously. So it seems like that's one where Niele Ivey, I actually asked her today, which is Wednesday, if you're listening this back on Apple or Spotify, and she said it's one of those things that just takes time. So I would expect her back at some point too. And then Liatu King is going to play, it sounds like, against USC. That's huge. You can't go into that game this Saturday. Number 3 team in the country. Juju Watkins is one of the best players in the country. I suspect it's going to be all hands on deck for Notre Dame to defend her. I mean, that's Hannah Hidalgo at 5'6", guarding a 6'2" guard at sometimes, if she can get up in her grill and do that full court type of thing that she does to literally anybody of any size. But it's also going to be like 6-foot Liatu King on her sometimes. Sonia Citrone, who's 6'1", she's going to be defending her. So to have an extra body, it's crazy that I'm talking about a 7-player rotation, and that's an extra body for this Notre Dame women's basketball team, because they played multiple times this season with an exhibition and 4 regular season games. So 5 games in total. Jack, they've played multiple times with a 6-player rotation, which is kind of absurd. But you know what else is absurd? The talent that they have within that 6-player rotation. I think Olivia Miles would be the best player on any team in the country, not named USC or UConn or Notre Dame, obviously, because Hannah Hidalgo might be better than Olivia Miles, which is crazy because Olivia Miles is showing that she's still a triple-double machine. So like you said, Jack, fun season at Purcell Pavilion, obviously on the women's side, but it's pretty cool that we get to say that about the men's side too, pretty confidently at this point, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if there'll be a tournament team. My preseason pick was that they'll be on the bubble, or that they'll wind up on the wrong side of the bubble. but I mean, still a market improvement. And last year was as bad as the men's team was going to be for a while. This year is as not great as the men's team is going to be for quite a while, because they obviously have terrific recruiting class, which they signed last week coming in. Get them now, because this Notre Dame men's basketball team is going, I think 25, 26, 26, 27 is going to be their real contention year. But I think they're going to be, as someone would say, frisky and fun this year.
That's always, in the second year of a college head coach, that's no problem if you're frisky and fun and you're on the bubble. And they call it a bubble for a reason, because they could easily be on the right side of that bubble. So that'll be fun to monitor. Jack has you covered on that front. We both have you covered on the Notre Dame football front. And here's Adam chiming in here before the show even started. He says, it's kind of a waste of time. If you guys saw the show headline, these are founded rumors that we're going to talk about here today, Jack, because I interned at NFL Network and I never met Tom Pelissero, who came out with a report recently that, or I don't know if you'd call it a report, but it's an article posted on NFL.com, very credible website, obviously, that has candidates for the next NFL coaching cycle. And Jack, Marcus Freeman of Notre Dame in his third season with the Fighting Irish was mentioned there amongst some, names from both college and NFL, I believe. A lot of NFL names on here. So you're talking like defensive coordinators from the NFL, Joe Brady, offensive coordinator in the NFL, like a lot of names that you would say, okay, yeah, that makes sense to be a head coach in the NFL potentially. When I heard Marcus Freeman kind of listed in that light, my first thought was, doesn't make any sense at all, because I think he loves the college game. He's only 38 years old, almost 39. I think he has a January birthday, so that's coming up. But like, he's young. He relates to these college players. It seems like he gets it. He loves recruiting. He loves Notre Dame, for one. Like that's huge. But then I thought of the other side of the coin. It's like Jim Harbaugh loves Michigan, and he's a great college coach, but some people can win on both sides. We're seeing it right now with Jim Harbaugh, who's 7-3 with the Los Angeles Chargers. That's a team that went 5-12 in the NFL last year. Coach, he was the 15-0 head coach. I guess 14-0, maybe. How many games did he miss because of that little Connor Stallions deal?
He missed 6 games. Yeah,
he was the coach of an undefeated football team last year. He's a good football coach. I think that Marcus Freeman would be a good coach in the NFL potentially if that's the route that he wanted to go. But Jack, I mean, let's just start with your thoughts there. I don't think now's the time for him to make that leap. Like, he's building something special in South Bend, is he not?
Yeah, and I think reading into those reports, they both kind of read as though they're coming from NFL people who are, when these hot boards, if you will, are built by Pelissero and Jeremy Fowler with ESPN, like, they're talking to people in NFL circles who are throwing out names as like, so this is a guy that we feel like people might be interested in. So the Freeman rumor, it's coming from people on the NFL side. It seems to me. It's not like Marcus Freeman's actively looking to leave, which he's not, of course. I don't know. Like, I don't think either of us know Marcus Freeman well enough to definitively say like whether he would leave for an NFL job. I suspect he wouldn't get a super serious look at this stage in his Notre Dame career. And I also suspect that, like you said, like, the difference between him and Jim Harbaugh is Jim Harbaugh is there for 10 years and won a national championship. And at that point, he accomplished everything he could accomplish at Michigan. I think he suspected that the talent drop off with 18 guys coming to the draft was coming, and he left for the NFL at the right time. And also the hammer down from the scandal, but that's a whole separate discussion. But with Freeman, like I said, he's building something in South Bend. He seems like the type of guy who would want to see it through. And he's always struck me as the kind of guy whose message would play better with college kids than with adults in the NFL. And that's not a bad thing. So that's very much true of Jim Harbaugh, because I mean, he wore out his welcome in San Francisco a decade ago, because when guys are there for more than 4 years, the message gets old. But again, I don't know. I don't even know if I would call this a rumor. Like, it's just NFL people suggesting that, like, hey, maybe he would make a good head coach. Add his name to the article. So, I mean, we're probably making a bigger deal about this than needs to be. But when prominent people, like credible prominent people, throw his name out there for this, I mean, we obviously have to talk about it. So, yeah, I don't think he's leaving. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right. Here's the interesting thing, because when you were talking there, I was just kind of sifting through Tom Pelissero's article. Again, I have the utmost respect for him. He's a great reporter on the NFL side of things. I don't know if there is another college name. Like, I'm reading through this. Giants DC Shane Brown, Bills OC Joe Brady, Bears OC Thomas Brown, Buccaneers OC Liam Cohen, Patriots DC DeMarcus Covington, Panthers DC Avero. That's an interesting name. I don't know if I got that right, but then you have Notre Dame head coach Marcus Freeman, Ravens strength and conditioning Chris Horton, Lions OC, or that might be STC, yeah, strength and conditioning, I guess. Lions OC Ben Johnson, like NFL, and then there's Marcus Freeman. So one, I just think it's a tremendous credit to him.
Yeah.
And does this mean that he's like, oh yeah, I'm going to jump to the NFL? No. Could this mean Marcus Freeman has a very good agent and he wants an extension at Notre Dame? Sure, it can mean a lot of things. But here's another thing, because I mentioned the Harbaugh thing and you did a good job of expounding upon that. The things about college football that make it very difficult to coach in today, I think, are the things that make Marcus Freeman a very good head coach in college football, because he understands them. Like the NIL thing, it's not the same at Notre Dame that it is at Alabama or Tennessee, and he gets it. And by all accounts, Notre Dame is doing just fine in NIL. Notre Dame is doing just fine in the transfer portal. Look at the quarterback that they have. That's not even a graduate transfer. I get it. He came from Duke, but Notre Dame is trying to be as competitive in some of these other spaces that it's very competitive to be in college football right now. And I think a lot of that is attributed to the way that Marcus Freeman runs this program. Like, for 38 years old, I don't know if I do know he's a very intelligent guy, but he's surrounded himself with intelligent people too. And I think he's got an awesome thing working. And we're going to get to that in the next question from message board subscribers. And I guess I should have popped this on here for the first one, because for people who are saying you shouldn't even be talking about this, on the Hey Horka thread today on Wednesday, 2 different posters, GB Irish and K Hogan 36 asked. So like it's a relevant topic right now. But Jack, that's kind of like my final piece on this is he's just so fit for the college game, Marcus Freeman is, and I think it's just a testament to people seeing that and saying maybe he's a fit for the NFL because he's such a well-rounded guy. I think it's just a compliment, and Notre Dame should feel lucky, quite frankly, to have him, because like this is a heck of a head coach that Notre Dame has. I don't know if we have Jack. He looks frozen on my end here. Comment if you can hear me, guys, because it seems like Jack is frozen on my end. All right, comment if you guys. All right, you can hear me. That was weird. Jack is frozen. We'll get him back in here, but that's kind of my piece on this whole Marcus Freeman thing. I will skip to an Augie's ad. You guys chime in with what you think about the Marcus Freeman deal. He's being mentioned by both NFL Network and ESPN as a potential NFL head coaching candidate, which I think is just the utmost compliment to him. Maybe this is a little prisoner of the moment type situation because, NIU is still a thing. This is the first year that he has a chance to win double-digit regular season games in college football. So it's all a little interesting, but just to be mentioned, I think is a pretty big deal. So like I said, let's switch it over to an Augie's locker room ad because we need to pay some bills here. And the only way that you guys, if you're not locally in South Bend, are going to be going to Augie's locker room in the near future is if you go to one of those basketball games for those teams that we were talking about. The women's side has some big ones against Texas and UConn coming up. But also in December, there could be a Notre Dame home playoff game if the Irish take care of business against Army and USC. And if you do go to Notre Dame's home playoff game, if that is a thing in December, you have got to go to Augie's locker room. We know you love Notre Dame memorabilia and unique one-of-a-kind Notre Dame items that you can only find at one place, Augie's Locker Room. Augie's Locker Room has moved to a new location as of last fall. Come and see Augie's store located at 1733 North Ironwood Drive in South Bend, right down the street from Notre Dame. When you come for a game, possibly a playoff game, like I was saying, you have to make time for Augie's Locker Room. They have a wide selection of Notre Dame Stadium pieces, jerseys, helmets, autographs, and one-of-a-kind Rockney items. You can find exclusive Joe Montana signed items and famous sculptor Jerry McKenna's replicas of the bronze statues around the stadium. Augie gets new items all the time. If he doesn't have it in his store, he will find it for you. Visit Augie at 1733 North Ironwood Drive in South Bend and see the vintage helmet display dating back to 1890. He's got some amazing items that you want to see. Visit augieslockerroom.com. If you're watching on YouTube, appreciate you. That's what you'll see right here. Or give us a call at 574-277-6363. Looks like we still don't have Jack. I'm going to try to text him on the side here. He says that his Wi-Fi went out, which if you're living in the year 2024, which we all are, it's happened to all of us. Happens to the best of us. So we will get him back on here. But in the meantime, we will kind of jump into the next segment. Looks like he's here perfectly in time. Jack, I just read an Augie's Locker Room ad, so I think we're good to go, man. Let's jump right into this second segment. I was just telling the people, if you're living in the year 2024, we've all had our Wi-Fi go out, so it's understandable.
Yeah, no, I probably need to contact my provider because my very expensive Wi-Fi, it works. It works very well when it's working 99% of the time. That 1% of the time where it randomly craps out is getting awfully old. But I'm back, and I should be good for the rest of the show.
I actually had an issue with it the other day when I came back from Marcus Freeman's press conference, and I was trying to record a video on this very software that we use to do these, the Howard Cross injury update video, and we had to delay that because of my Wi-Fi. So I get it, man. This kind of builds off of the first topic that we had, I think, in a way, because if you do assume that Marcus Freeman is going to be around for a while, which it sounds like from that first segment, we both kind of feel like this is the place for him, despite those NFL rumors. I think to answer this question from Thomas Na, how do you see Notre Dame's trajectory in the coming years? I think Marcus Freeman's doing an excellent job. And it's a bit of a departure from, I said it earlier, prisoner of the moment type thing, to say that Marcus Freeman's already ready to jump to the NFL. Probably a prisoner of the moment take for me when I said that maybe Notre Dame shouldn't have hired a 38-year-old head coach to replace 60-year-old Brian Kelly, because look how that's going for him down in Baton Rouge. I can't believe the 180. Different situations. I know people have been in my social media mentions saying, yeah, what did Brian Kelly take over as to what Marcus Freeman took over from Brian Kelly? I get all that, but Jack, the way these last, 8 games have gone, and the way that we think these next 2 are going to go against Army and USC, I think we're both picking Notre Dame to win out at this point and make the college football playoff, right? In an era where the playoff is always going to be this large, 12 teams, I think Notre Dame is going to be in there pretty much every single year. Marcus Freeman has proven that he can do that. Now, the schedule's getting really hard. Like 5 years from now, when Notre Dame, right now as it stands, has to play Texas and Alabama in the same season, that's going to be tough. This schedule was nothing like that one. But recruiting, operationally, the way that he's coached in-game and leading up to games in the last 2 months, man, I think if the last 2 months is what Marcus Freeman can do year in and year out as a head football coach at University of Notre Dame, I think the trajectory of this program is phenomenal. And it's right up there with, and especially in a year like this where there seems to be so much parity, I think you're kind of talking about Notre Dame with the blue bloods, the other blue bloods of the sport. And I don't want to say it hasn't been like that in recent years, because Notre Dame has punched tickets to the college football playoff a couple times since 2018, but we saw what happened in those CFPs. Like right now, this version of Notre Dame, I think, could hang with an Oregon or Ohio State or an Alabama or a Georgia. And I get it, this year seems a little different, but it's also a testament to Marcus Freeman, and I think he's on the right track here.
Yeah, I to shortly answer the question, I would say ask me in 2 weeks, because we're having a very different conversation if they lose one of those 2 games and miss the college football playoff, because if they lose one of those 2 games, they're going to miss the college football playoff. So presuming they don't do that, presuming they win out and they make the playoff, maybe definitely host a game, maybe even win a game, I think it's heading up. And a big part of that is that I think Notre Dame has closed the talent gap with some of these upper echelon teams. I don't think, who in college football is markedly more talented than Notre Dame right now. part of that is parity in the sport is a lot better. Like there's no super team to smash Notre Dame with hammers like a 2018 Clemson or a 2020 Alabama. I think Notre Dame is more talented than those versions. I think there are more NFL players on this roster, more high NFL draft picks. I think the young talent in this program is awfully high right now. We've seen a great many freshmen and sophomores contributing throughout this season, and especially later in the season when veterans have gone down due to injury. So I think it's going up, but again, ask me in 2 weeks because a lot can change if you lose one of these two games.
I like the points that you made there about like personnel, and I'll add coaching as well. Like the guys that Marcus has surrounded himself with, phenomenal. Al Golden might be the best defensive coordinator in college football. Mike Denbrock, I think the improvement that the offense has made from NIU to now is marked and great, and it's the reason, a major reason Notre Dame is in this position to be in the college football playoff. But then getting back to the players, dude, like how many teams could lose a Benjamin Morrison type? He's the best player on your football team if your name is Notre Dame. And sometimes if your name is like Alabama, like how many times have we seen Alabama's best player as a corner that is going to go to the league and play for a really long time, like defensive back type like that? Xavier Watts is a guy that has been groomed by this Marcus Freeman, Al Golden defensive coaching staff over the last couple of years. Mike Mickens, like that I guess that would be my one worry is how do you see the Notre Dame's trajectory in the coming years? How long can you keep all of these guys, man, these coaches? Because I think the development is awesome by them, and the personnel by way of that they've closed that gap between your Alabamas and, like you said, your Clemsons of 2016, 17, 2018, those types of teams. How long can you keep that nucleus there? Because we've seen it with Dabo Swinney at Clemson. Like as soon as that thing gets disbanded, you're done. I personally feel like it's just the beginning for Notre Dame's nucleus to like stay intact like that. Maybe you lose a Dylan McCullough and you're able to withstand that because the recruiting has been so great. But like you have to sort of think about these things. Like it does really seem like a golden age of Notre Dame coaching. They're not all going to stay forever. That's just the reality of coaching. So hold on to those guys because I think Notre Dame has some really, really good ones. And it's a reason why this program is in such a solid spot.
Well, I think part of that is like one of the most undervalued traits in a head coach is the ability to hire other coaches because you're going to have to do it again and again and again. You hire good coaches, you're going to lose good coaches. It's just a fact of college football right now. And I think what a big thing Freeman has going for him is that he understands his strengths and weaknesses as a coach, and he hires assistants accordingly. Like Freeman, I'll give you the Mike Mickens example. Freeman does not consider himself a terrific talent evaluator. He's been open about that for a while. And the story he always brings up is that he thought Sauce Gardner was a good player. Like even since I've been on the beat, and Freeman's been there since 2021. Mike Mickens has been there since 2020. I've been here since 23, but I can probably count like five different times Freeman's told this story. Like Mike Mickens thought Sauce Gardner was like the guy we got to get at Cincinnati. It was Freeman thought Sauce was a good player. Mike Mickens was like, we have to get this guy. And since that, I think that's been Freeman's big light bulb moment. Like Freeman told himself, like, I'm not a terrific talent evaluator. I'm going to surround myself with terrific talent evaluators. I think Freeman is a good developer. And I think he's part of why he obviously hires good developers as position coaches. Everyone has to have that. But I think that's kind of how he and his assistants work in tandem is that like they evaluate the talent in their position groups. Freeman helps develop the talent, and Freeman motivates them on game day. He's obviously a motivator. He also, with the coordinators, I don't think Freeman considers himself an amazing X's and O's guy. Like he's obviously good X's and O's guy, but I feel like he generally lets Mike Denbrock and Al Golden have autonomy in those areas. So you lose one of those guys, and I don't think they're going to lose Mike Denbrock and Al Golden because I don't think those guys have much interest in being a head coach if the opportunity isn't perfect. So I think they're going to keep those guys. But if you lose a Mike Mickens or a Dylan McCullough or Joe Rudolph. We should be talking much more about the job Joe Rudolph's done this year, both on the recruiting trail and especially on the practice field in developing some of these guys and getting them ready to play. Hire someone else, and I think Freeman has shown to be good at that, which is going to make him, which is going to serve him well long term.
It's the hiring. It's being able to find the guy, then convince him. Like Marcus Freeman pulled Mike Denbrock away from LSU, and I get it. LSU 6-4 and a little bit of a dumpster fire right now, but Mike Denbrock just coached the Heisman Trophy winner. He's coaching with one of his good friends that goes back to like the 1980s when they were GAs, in wherever the heck, Michigan or whatever. And Marcus Freeman's like, nope, that's my guy. I'm going to get him. Convinces him, comes here. And like I said, Mike Denbrock has done an excellent job from beginning of the season to now in terms of just like developing this offense. It's all of the, like getting Dylan McCullough to come here. He was coaching with the Kansas City Chiefs. Like, that's a big thing to be able to pull a guy like that. So identifying, hiring, and then Jack, like you said, delegating the powers, having the understanding to be like, this guy is good at that, so I'm going to let him do that, and we're going to be a better football team because of that. Which leads me to my final point on this question. Could you imagine if, like, I take Marty Biagi, for example. He's well out of the doghouse by now. I think we can all say that.
I would agree with that. Yep.
He's a creative special teams mind. If you could just get all of your coaches to like buy in for like 5 years at what they're really good at. Mike Mickens, you're an awesome recruiter and you coach the heck out of these defensive backs. Stay here with me for 5 years. And like Dylan McCullough, you recruit that. You know what I mean, though? Like, if you could do that, and this Notre Dame coaching staff was 100% intact for 5 years, I'm not a big gambler or a betting man, but you could persuade me to lay some money down on a Notre Dame national title future if I knew for a fact that Marcus Freeman was the head coach, these two guys, Al Golden and Mike Denbrock, are your coordinators, and these assistants are all going to remain the same guys for 5 years. I like Notre Dame in that window, man. And that's why my final answer to what's the trajectory in the coming years, you don't know what's going to happen with these coaches, but what we do know about them, who they are right now and what they have right now, excellent football coaches. And it's the reason that they're 9-1 and probably going to be 11-1. I might have just jinxed that. I don't believe in jinxes. I was asked that in Hey Horka, by the way. I don't believe in jinxes. There are coincidences. I don't believe in jinxes. So that's my piece.
Well, I believe in jinxes, and my final word on this subject is I like TXND's comment. Again, we're very happy with Freeman right now if you're a Notre Dame fan, but make the playoffs, win these next 2 games, get a win in the playoffs, and then we'll talk, I think.
Yeah, and here's a last thing here. I actually saw, I forget the website that it was, but Gino Guidugli's name floated out there for the Wisconsin offensive coordinator position. I believe that just came open. Ironically, I know they played Oregon tight in that game, but it wasn't because of the offense, right? It was because of the defense. But
Correct.
Obviously, Gino Guidugli has ties to Luke Fickell working for him at Cincinnati. So there you go. If you want some Gino Guidugli fodder, I didn't think we were going to have any in this show, but there's some food for thought there. I don't know much more about it, so I'm not going to dive into it. We're going to dive into more about this Notre Dame football team. My answer to this one's pretty short. I don't know what yours is, Jack, because we haven't conversed about this. If you read my thread today, you know my answer. Maybe yours is the same. 10 games into the Notre Dame football season, the Fighting Irish's biggest surprise on offense is blank. For me, it's that, and I should have put these numbers into memory, but it's that Mitch Evans has something along the lines of like 18 or 20 catches for 100 and I can pull it up right here. Mitchell Evans has 22 catches for 188 yards and 2 touchdowns. And I get it. I know he was coming back from the knee injury. And the first month of the season, I gave him a total pass. So I remember doing one of these shows with you, Jack, and I was like, if you're even questioning Mitchell Evans' productivity or lack thereof right now, what are you doing? He had ACL surgery like 10 months ago. Well, now it's more like 12 months. And I think it's more of a Notre Dame operational issue in the passing game, the blocking, the scheme. Mike Denbrock even talked about this. I think it was last week in his availability. He said, I feel kind of like a hypocrite because I am the tight ends coach and I tell these guys in our team meetings, like, hey, we're going to get you the ball. And then I get into these games and, I draw something up for Jaden Greathouse or Jordan Faison or Jaden Harrison. And that's just the way that it works. And that's what's going to be good for our offense. So but still, with that in mind, coming from the man himself, knowing what Mitchell Evans was last year and what I thought he was going to be this year, to me, the biggest surprise for the Notre Dame offense is that that guy who had 400 yards in like 7.5 games last year has 188 in 10.
Yeah. And again, like you mentioned the injury, I think he's had a great last 2 or 3 weeks, even though the numbers might not necessarily be what they were last year. I think he's playing as well as he was last year right now. And I'll continue to say this every time we bring up individual pass catcher stats. Like, this Notre Dame offense spreads the ball around much more than it did last year. I think Sam Hartman was a much bigger, I will only throw you the ball if I trust you kind of quarterback. Whereas Leonard is like, I will throw it to whoever's open. The quote he had the other day was like, yesterday. The quote he had yesterday was like, if you're wearing the same color jersey as me, I will throw it to you. So I think that explains a lot of the individual wide receiver numbers. But you're right. Like, before the A&M game, if you told me that was Mitchell Evans' stat line, I would be a little surprised because unless, like, I don't think any of us really understood the extent to which it would take a while for him to fully come back before the season. Which brings me to responding to this question with a question, like, at what point are we talking, like, when are we saying we would be surprised by this? Because, like, if we're talking like over the summer, I would say Anthony Knapp has started all 10 games at left tackle. If we're talking a week before the season, that would not be a surprise. So I actually like another TXND's comment, O-line being a Joe Moore Award nomination.
That's a good one.
Semifinalist now. So I like that one. I don't know if they – like, I think they've been good and certainly better recently. I would like to see what they look like against another good front, which, unless you count Army, and we'll get to Army in a sec, which they're not going to see until the playoff, because the last time they played against a legit good front was Louisville, and they struggled a bit in that game. Maybe you count Florida State, maybe you don't. But I would like to see what they look like against a good defensive front before I really crown them and say, like, they've arrived. But they've certainly gotten better. And biggest surprise for the offense is that, like, the O-line has not been a clear weakness since, like, A&M and NIU.
Yeah, you make a good point about, like, when are we talking about the surprise? Yeah. Because but I guess that's why I'm confident in going with my Evans pick, because we knew he was coming back from a knee injury. I just thought he would be more of a focal point in this offense to this point. I kind of like this from Ryan. Unleash him, man. Like, I'm as much as I say I'm surprised, I guess this makes sense. I say that I'm surprised that Evans hasn't, like, broken out this season, which makes me, I would not be surprised if he went for 110 yards in one of these upcoming games and was like, oh yeah, we knew he had that in him. We've literally seen that from him. So these games are all important. Notre Dame's got 6 games left if it wants to win a national championship. So if one of those is an Evans 2-touchdown, 100-yard game, there you go. I think this season would be considered a success considering what he's coming back from at that point.
I would be surprised if a Notre Dame wide receiver goes over 100 yards in a game this season.
Receiver, including like a Mitchell Evans?
Yeah, Notre Dame pass catcher goes over 100 yards in a game this season.
That's a good – it hasn't happened at all, has it?
I think Jaden Harrison would have last game if that 76-yard touchdown didn't get called back. Maybe you would have been able to say that about, like, a Jaden Greathouse or Bo Collins earlier in the season, but, like, again, the way this offense operates and the way this quarterback operates, like, you cannot judge pass catchers' performance based on individual stats. Like, to the secret weapon point, like, I don't think opposing DCs are looking at the box score and saying, "Oh, Mitchell Evans is only 18 catches. He's not that much of a concern." Yeah. If they do, they're dumb.
No, I know for a fact that's not the case because I do the opposing coach press conference transcription every week. And when they get asked the cliche question about personnel, it's, oh, yeah, 88's a really good tight end. So they know that. Opposing coaches know that. Sticking with the offensive side of the ball, Jack, Notre Dame's offense beats Notre Dame beats Army on offense. So this is what the Fighting Irish have to do offensively to beat a very good, statistically, Marcus Freeman said it himself on Monday, Army defense. That literally, like, it's a little ironic when you look at season-long statistics. It'll be like Army right ahead of Notre Dame in rushing yards allowed per game and yards allowed per game, yards per play, like all these things. Army is right there. They've played nobody, though, literally nobody. North Texas is the best team that they've played. It's a 5-5 AAC football team. Army beat them 14-3 on the road. Bryson Daly coming back from a week off with an injury, so you give the offense a pass there. Obviously, the defense did a really good number on North Texas, but Jack, for me, this question is just show up and do what you've done. Like, I think that Notre Dame, and Marcus Freeman said it on Monday, to his credit, you can't go into this game thinking you're not going to be able to run on Army. You're Notre Dame. You have Riley Leonard. You have Jeremiah Love. You have Jadarian Price. You have an offensive line that we just talked about that has improved tremendously, and you think it's going to be able to block anybody on this Army defense. Run the ball, pass it all over, like you said, Jack. Army's pass defense, like Jaden Greathouse and Bo Collins and Jaden Harrison, are so superiorly athletic, if that's a correct way to phrase that, than these Army, like the guys that they have in their secondary. Just go out there and play football. I think that's the key here. Do what you've done for two months to win 8 games in a row, and I think the Notre Dame offense is going to be just fine.
Yeah, I think the big key for them is make your possessions count. I think, like, we pointed this out as a misconception when Notre Dame played Navy, because the common refrain every year when you play Navy is like, got to make your possessions count. They control the clock. That was not this Navy team, even if they didn't fumble 5 or 6 times.
81st in time of possession. What's
Navy
Army?
was 81st in time of possession coming into that game because they won with explosives. That was not your father's Navy team. This is your father's Army team. In that Army is number 2 in time of possession. Someone pointed out to Riley Leonard yesterday that I think teams are averaging 8 possessions a game against Army. So these penalties that Notre Dame has lamented in the past week since who did they play? Virginia. A major brain fart right there. Since Virginia, when they had 4 straight 3-and-outs because they couldn't.
When Notre Dame's winning by multiple scores in all these games, they run together, man. I did an interview with the player's parent recently, and she was trying to recall a game, and I was like, yeah, that game does seem a lot like that game, and this game seems a lot like that game. So you're excused.
Yeah. But so since Virginia, they've lamented the penalties and the negative plays. Like, you cannot have that against this Army team. If they stay on schedule, if, like you said, if they play their game, if they play their game, if they run the ball, if they throw as a compliment, they'll be fine on offense, I think.
Yeah, I want to pull up this drive chart. And now it's my Wi-Fi that's failing me a little bit, or maybe it's Stat Broadcast. You ever been failed by Stat Broadcast, Jack?
Many times.
Can take a while to come up, but yeah, I think I can make this a little bit bigger and show you guys here. Here we go. This is not going to work against Army. Right here. That's what Jack was talking about. You see up there at the top, Notre Dame's drive chart against Virginia. 3 plays, 6 yards, punt. 3 play, 1 yard, punt. 3 plays, 7 yards, punt. 3 plays, 6 yards, punt. If you're Notre Dame and that's your first half, you could realistically be looking at 14-3, 14-7, 14-0 Army lead sometime late in the second quarter. And Notre Dame, to their credit, they figured it out with a 9-play, 88-yard drive in that second quarter against Virginia, kind of take control of that football game, right? Army likes to take control of football games. Do you know that Army, Jack, has scored a touchdown on every single one of its opening drives this year? If there's one knock on Al Golden's defense, what is it?
Opening drive touchdowns.
Opening drive, man. So
I don't even, is it even a knock? Because like teams
yeah.
get so gimmicky against Notre Dame on the first drive. Like Notre Dame has no idea what it's seeing. And then Al Golden is like, all right, this is what they're running. This is what we're going to do to counter it. And they just give up nothing the rest of the game. I don't even know if it's a flaw at this point.
Yeah, except Brian says except one game. I said opening drive touchdown. I think it's 8 of 9 on touchdowns, and even on the one that they didn't score a touchdown, they still scored a field goal. So they've scored points on every single opening drive. So yeah, I like what you're saying. Don't fall into this trap. It's not even a trap because it's right there in front of you.
Yeah.
Like you see it, you know what Army's going to do. Try not to let them do that. Like go on, like I said, a 9-play 88-yard drive of your own, or if you're Notre Dame, get the quick strike. Like just score any way you can. Stay ahead of both the chains and the scoreboard in this game, and I think you're going to be okay if you're Notre Dame.
I think the big picture thing to cap off this point is like just don't hurt yourself. Like Riley Leonard said it straight up when we talked to him yesterday. He basically said like, yeah, us going 3 and out 4 times in a row, that was nothing Virginia did. That was just Notre Dame holding, hands to the face, 10-yard loss where Jeremiah Love should have just taken a loss of 4, but Billy Strouth got pantsed by a defensive lineman. Strouth, who otherwise had a very good game, but that was not his best rep. You just can't hurt yourself like you did, and you'll be fine. Like it's nothing Virginia did really hurt Notre Dame. It was just all self-inflicted errors. If you don't have those, you're probably going to win this football game.
This was Riley Leonard's prelude to that diatribe where he was saying, we can't hold with hands to the face. We can't miss this, whatever. He said, I don't think there is any team that really intimidates us too much. So one, he's confident. 2, he knows that confidence stems from if we can just play a clean football game, which, you know, there were some moments earlier in the season where there has not been a perfect Notre Dame offensive game this year. Let's just say that. But when they're really clicking and they're not shooting themselves in the foot, very good on offense.
Absolutely.
All right. I mentioned Howard Cross the third a little bit earlier in the show. My answer to this one's pretty quick, too. We might be getting out of here before the hour mark, Jack, just because some of my answers to these are pretty snappy, but I think we've expounded upon them pretty well. Would you risk playing Howard Cross the third this week? I think I said playing twice there, so he's a good football player. He deserves that. Would you risk playing him this week to ensure a Notre Dame win? Yes. 100% yes. You're playing against, like you said, Jack, your father's triple option team. Howard Cross has been at Notre Dame for 5 seasons. He's seen, he's either been on scout team for or played against or studied Navy's offense for a long time. And I get it. They're different. Marcus Freeman said it. You said it. This is not Navy 2.0. It's an option offense. And if you go back a few years, Navy did have the traditional option offense. So he knows what he's looking at here. He knows how to stop it. He was running out on senior day to midfield to greet Marcus Freeman and his family. Like, he's jogging on that thing. I think he even jogged up the tunnel after the game when we were all standing there to get ready for Marcus Freeman's post-game interview. Play him, Jack. Play this guy. And then play him next week against USC to ensure you get that win too. And then rest him for 3 weeks if you have to, because then you're going to be playing at home and he can kick his foot up and prepare for the college football playoff. Yeah, it's do or die, Jack. It's been do or die. And I get it. You felt that you could rest him against Virginia, and the injury was fresh at that point too. It didn't look good against Florida State. Like, it looked like it was really hurting him. He was frustrated and angry by it. But, Jack, this is a game where you lean on your veteran defensive players. USC is a game where you lean on your veteran defensive players because you're on the road and you got to win that one. You play him these next 2 weeks, I think. If he's 75 to 80% and up, you play the guy.
Yeah, if he's healthy enough to go, you have to play him, especially because, like, this Army team, what impresses me the most about their offense is that they have a really big, by Army standards, really physical, really impressive offensive line. And you need your best defensive tackles in this game to stop him. I know this is not Navy 2.0, but Howard Cross played a really good game against Navy. he was big in stopping some of the more traditional triple option stuff that they ran. The big thing to stop, besides eye discipline in the back seven, but in like for the defensive ends in the back seven, but you knew that, is like you need your defensive tackles to blow stuff up the middle. That's how you create havoc against a triple option. Your D tackles are getting pushed back. Everything becomes a lot easier to operate if you're Army. That's a big reason they've operated so well, because they've won the line of scrimmage in pretty much every game they play. So you need Howard Cross in this game. And I think if you get him, you should be fine against this Army defense.
Army offense. Totally agree. And I don't even have much more to say about that. So we're going to finish with something a little fun. And I think we might have a little bit of differing opinions. I've come to find out that I have an unpopular opinion on this. And I think it's because you Midwesterners just like to flex your cold weather on us. But I'll get into my theory on this. So how much of a weather advantage would Notre Dame have in a home playoff game against an SEC team? This is a relevant topical question because if the season ended today, Notre Dame would be hosting Alabama in the first round of the college football playoff. My take on this, Jack, if you are, I don't know, let's take a kid from Alabama, 17-year-old Ryan Williams, the wide receiver. If you are so good at what you do, which he is, and we've all seen it multiple times this season, I don't care if it's rain, sleet, snow, sunshine, 110 degrees in Texas in the last weekend of August. There should be no under any circumstance, unless it's just like, Buffalo blizzard and you can't play the game and you got to postpone it or whatever, right? Because that's the only time a football game's getting postponed for weather, is if it's so windy and snowy that you literally can't play it, or if there's lightning in the area, of course. Weather should not affect you, man. Like chilliness, like last week, Jack, it was in the 40s maybe by the time that we got on the field. If you're a team from Florida or Texas or Louisiana or Alabama or Georgia, and you come up to Notre Dame Stadium and it's in the 40s and you say, oh, my performance is affected because it's a little chilly, that's ridiculous, man. You're a 5-star. You went through this whole recruitment process. You're getting oodles and oodles of NIL money in this era, and you can't play a football game because you're a little bit cold. No. I don't subscribe to that theory. I don't think that, so to answer the question from Irish alum 2013, nah, man, I don't think it should be a big advantage. And if it is, if Notre Dame beats Alabama by 3 touchdowns instead of 2 or 2 instead of 1, because a whole score was made up in the fact that Notre Dame was prepared for cold weather and Alabama wasn't, well, Alabama, you are not mentally tough enough to say that you deserve to win that football game. I don't think that the cold weather thing is as much of a big deal as everyone wants to make it to be.
I don't disagree with you that it should be that way, but I don't think it is. Like, I go back to, and we texted about this earlier today, like I go back to Notre Dame's win over A&M, in that Notre Dame was the physically and mentally tougher team. A lot of that had to do with the heat conditions. Notre Dame was better equipped than Texas A&M to handle the heat. Texas A&M, the starting quarterback, was puking on the sideline. I don't think Notre Dame had a single cramp in that game. It was a very impressive job by Lauren Lando and the sports performance staff in that area. But I really think it could be an advantage for Notre Dame if a snow team comes up, because I don't know if I'd say this if I wasn't confident Notre Dame was a physically and mentally tough team. Like Notre Dame would be piping into air conditioning into the IAC, knowing Marcus Freeman about this, and Bama or Ole Miss or whoever would be doing that at their facility. But I think it would help Notre Dame. Notre Dame players live in cold weather. They're more used to it. Like I think it's more of an advantage than heat is as well when you go down south, because South Bend heat, it's not the same as the Texas heat, but you can prepare for that in the summer. You gotta live that in the winter, and I think it would be an advantage for Notre Dame. It's not a matter of whether it should be. Like, you can, old man yells at cloud all you want about how it's weak to play poorly in the snow. Like, I don't disagree with you, but the fact of the matter is that can happen.
I guess you have to take it on a case-by-case basis too, because quite frankly, I think, well, a Nick Saban Alabama team probably wouldn't be in the position of being the 9 seed and having to go play at Notre Dame, but I think a Nick Saban Alabama team would be better equipped for it than a Kalen DeBoer team. Like from everything that I've read, I'm a college football connoisseur. Alabama is a 2-loss team at this point in the season for the first time in forever because Nick Saban's teams were just they were just different from like a Kalen DeBoer. It's not a Kalen DeBoer thing either. I think he's a fine football coach, but Nick Saban is just a different beast. I think he would have them ready for a snow game or a cold weather game. But there's also,
I like that super chat. It's a good point.
Yeah, let's get to the super chat here. Many of the SEC teams, we appreciate you, West Palm Pat. He's probably got very nice weather as we talk about weather here. Many SEC players have never played in the cold. They grew up down in the South, and SEC teams never come north in November. This is not the NFL where players go north all the time. I have a couple of different we appreciate that too. I'll leave that up there. Two different things here. One, it gets cold in the South, and I don't want to harp on my own accomplishments or anything. Actually, this is not an accomplishment because it shows that I lost my fantasy football league. 2 punishments in my fantasy football league if I lose it. I have to shave my hair. And if you're on this YouTube channel 2 years ago, you have literally seen me cover the Gator Bowl with a bald head. That's when Patrick Engel was still here, and we did a post-game recap. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to put a hat on because we're in Florida and it's nice weather, and I would look like a fool for wearing a fedora or a beanie or something. I was bald. Anyway, the second punishment, beer mile. You have to drink 4 beers and run a mile, and you could do it at your own pace. You know, if it takes 20 minutes, so be it. If it takes an hour, that's probably healthier for you, and I recommend that. However, I won't say my time. I did this beer mile in a incredibly fast time in 12-degree weather in Texas. So 1, it gets cold in Texas, in the South. It just does. West Palm Pat, I grew up there. We're good for like a snowmageddon, we call them sometimes. Like the city shuts down. I get it. We're not as well equipped as these Midwesterners.
Your snowmageddon is like 40 degrees and like light snow and like light fuzz on the ground.
Jack, it was 12 degrees. It was ice all over. The whole place was shut down. It's weird. I don't know how it happens down there, but it does. And I still ran this mile. Like my
ice
point
on
is
the street, thoughts and prayers.
Exactly. My point is there is a mind over matter element to everything. If you're an Alabama football player and you come up here and you say, oh man, I don't know if I can beat this Notre Dame team because it's cold, dude, you can't help it. You're not going to win the national title. I'm sorry. Like you should be able to play a football game in the cold. You just should.
No, it's a fair take. I think you should. I just don't know if they will.
Look at this. Worst ice that Texas ND has ever seen was in Austin, Texas, and he grew up in New York. I don't understand it because, Jack, I totally agree with you. It's going to be 75 and sunny on Christmas. You could pencil it in right now. But some random week in February, it's going to be 12 degrees and the ice is going to be on the road for a week, and they don't have the infrastructure to get it off, and all heck breaks loose. I don't understand it. It just happens. But it does get cold down there. And I guess because that is so rare, though, I will give, keep going back to the super chat and your point and anyone else's point in here who's talking about this. Because it is so rare, you are not as used to it for sure. Like I will even admit, I'll use another self-example from 2 hours ago. I walked my dog outside and Jack, the wind chill was like 30. And if you're not in the right headspace, which I was not, I've been working all day. I go outside and the wind hits me. I'm like, holy crap, this is cold. Let's get this mile over with, get these 20 minutes over with, and get back inside. However, if you're a football player with a national title on the line and you come up here and you say, I don't care how cold it is, I'm going to do what I have to do for 60 minutes to win this football game, I think that's a different deal. It's cold when I go walk the dog. It shouldn't be cold to you when you're Jalen Milroe and if you account for 4 touchdowns in this football game, you're going to go play in the Rose Bowl or Peach Bowl and have a chance to win a national title. Like you have to, that mental aspect has to be there if you're going to win a national championship. I firmly believe that. And I guarantee you Nick Saban would say the same thing.
That's fair. We should also clarify that for any kids on the stream, like, drinking to excess, not cool.
I told you, No, first of all, you have to be 21 years old, and I'm 29. I may not look like it, but I'm 29 years old. And two, like I said, it'd be a whole lot healthier for you if it took you 4 hours as opposed to my time, which I'm not going to tell you. You can ask me in person. I'm not going to tell you how long it took me, but I can tell you it was cold and I still ran the mile. That was the larger point there. I wasn't trying to make this about drinking. All right. Anything else, Jack, on it being cold in South Bend and maybe that helping? I don't know why. This has nothing to do with the Longhorns. I never mentioned them one time, John. So if you feel like you have to mention them, go ahead. Go ahead.
I would just add to the playoff chatter. Like, it certainly seems likely Notre Dame is going to play an SEC team, presuming Notre Dame again wins out and doesn't lose to Army or USC. That they're probably going to play the Alabama or Georgia or Tennessee or Ole Miss or whoever, maybe even Texas, perhaps. So it's going to be a tough matchup either way. I don't want to sound like an SEC shill, but this conference beats itself up. These teams are still really good, and I think they are rightly behind Indiana and Ohio State and Oregon. I'm not going to say Penn State, but they're rightly behind these Big Ten teams and Notre Dame for that matter. But these are some tough teams, and any matchup in South Bend would be tough for Notre Dame.
The last thing that Chief Brody says, Horka, have you ever ice skated? I grew up playing ice hockey.
Big hockey guy right here.
It's my favorite sport. I don't know why I'm not watching the Stars on the side here, but my brother is at the game right now, and he's been side texting me on the side about the game. So don't miss a Stars game on TV. I try to make it to as many as I can. And yes, I go ice skating. Me and Jack are going to go ice skating at Howard Park or maybe in Mishawaka. Right, Jack? We're going to go ice skating this winter? We should.
Yeah, I'll just add, like, you've suggested missing social events for Stars games. So forget does you skate. Horka's a big hockey guy.
Yeah. So yes, Chief Brody, I've ice skated a time or two. Last thing that I'll say, you took care of the SEC opponent thing. I will say one more thing on the weather, and this time it's going to be a nice thing. If it is a snow game by chance, I think that helps Notre Dame in the sense that they like to run the football. So, like, at that point, you have to look at matchups and who's – like, if it was Notre Dame, Penn State, I think that could be a doozy because – like, that just screams snow game personnel to me and play calling and scheme and whatnot. But you get one of these, again, I try not to make a big deal of the weather, but you get one of these like teams like Miami to come up here and they like to throw the ball all over the place. Heck yeah, that's an advantage for Notre Dame because of the football aspect. Notre Dame's good at this. Miami's not good at this. Notre Dame's going to have an advantage in bad weather. Like, I wholly believe in that. When you break down X's and O's as it relates to weather, that's a thing. As it relates to weather and being cold, please miss me with that. That's the last thing I'm going to say.
You make a good point. I firmly believe Notre Dame would beat the snot out of Miami on any field, but I think you make a good point.
I think that, well, it might be a little less pretty of a blowout on in snowy conditions, but I think the score line would trend in the same direction. I think we agree on that. So a lot of agreeing on this podcast. Maybe we'll have some disagreements down the line. I'm not sure, but a lot of good points too. That is the whole premise of the show, to answer these questions with some good points. I believe we did that. Appreciate everybody in the chat. It's a lively one. Definitely weren't able to get to all of you guys, but just know we were looking at that, and we appreciate you guys for watching live. Like this video, subscribe to this YouTube channel. And not sure about next week because it's the Wednesday before Thanksgiving and I've got some travel, but maybe we can fit this in on Tuesday. Is Mike do his thing on Tuesday? We'll see. Because we don't have player availability on Tuesday, so we'll see. Maybe we'll do a doubleheader. That'd be cool. We'll see. Appreciate you guys, and definitely stay tuned to our coverage of the Army game because it's a big one. They have all been big for 2 months. This one is no different. Appreciate you guys.